What's up, everybody? Metal Dave here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, bringing you another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Today, we are joined by Sean Pierce, former guitarist for New York trash glam punk band The Toilet Boys. They had a pretty good run in the 90s, and man, they were legendary in and around New York, and even got to take the show on the road. They went overseas and toured with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. If you're not familiar, they're one of these bands that put on just the craziest show you ever saw. Lots of pyro, lots of spitting fire, guitars shooting sparks, a front man that kind of looked like a he, she. You didn't really know what to make of this person. They were very visual, very theatrical, very shock rock. And for a hot minute there in New York, they were the hottest band on the scene. They had celebrities hanging out at their gigs: Debbie Harry, Ace Frehley, Dee Dee Ramone, the D-Generation guys. They were able to put out an album eventually. I'm showing it right here. It's just called Toilet Boys. And they did a number of EPs and 7-inches, some split 7-inches, things like that. You'll have to look pretty hard to find them, but it's out there. So do yourself a favor and look up the Toilet Boys music. And yeah, if you didn't get to see them back in the day, man, they were something else. I was lucky enough to see them. And the reason we got Sean on the show today, oddly enough, is about 25 years ago, I did a full color feature, about 4 or 5 pages in Metal Edge magazine on the Toilet Boys. And that sort of connected us. And they came to Texas, and I spent a couple days hanging out with them and going to their shows. And then Sean and I kind of lost touch over the years. But Richie Stotts, who we just had on the Talk Louder podcast, guitarist for the Plasmatics and another New Yorker, Sean commented on our Richie Stotts episode. And so that got Sean and I talking again recently. And I extended the invitation to see if he'd come onto the show and share some stories with us, revisit the Toilet Boys, tell us what he's up to now. And folks, I got to say, this is probably one of my favorite episodes. I mean, everything he is so full of great stories. It was just pure comedy, pure entertainment.
I feel awesome. And this is me being straight up, this is one of those episodes where I don't know shit about Toilet Boys.
Right.
And I had heard the name, of course, because it's one of those names that's been over here. I mean, first off, the name of the band is the Toilet Boys.
Right.
So, you're like, oh yeah, man, I got to check that out one day. Well, I don't know. True confession, I don't know shit. And when you were telling me about, our schedule this week, and my response was, I'm going to learn a lot.
Yeah.
And that happens quite a bit here on the show, where I'll bring someone in or Dave will bring someone in, and neither of us will be like, yep, seat of my pants. We're going to learn. It's like being schooled. And, Sean's just like you or me. He's a giant fan of rock and roll. And it doesn't, on the Talk Louder podcast, it does not matter if you know who we're talking to, what we're talking about. If you love rock and roll and you think you've seen some crazy shows before, this guy has taken rock and roll and lived it and and fucked it. He lived it and fucked it and then lived it again and again. And it tried to kill him, and he didn't die, and he wouldn't die.
Yeah.
The whole idea behind the band, I am in love with. Just knowing what their whole thing was now. They were freedom fighters. They were punk rock. They were glam rock. They were heavy metal. What is the Plasmatics? And they were a little bit of that, or a bit of that. Yeah. But now you know what we're talking about. It's like it's crossover is what it is. And I feel like Sean, our guest today, personifies a lot of stance on freedom and the idea of punk, because the term punk means freedom. Freedom of expression but just underline that shit and eat it, because that's what it is. That's the pill we're taking today. And it's just too bad that they didn't, I mean, the energy, it sounds like they had, I mean, was like almost like the reason they couldn't. All of the great things about them were the things that were attractive about the Toilet Boys were also what scared the industry away from them. So the only way to kind of be seen and heard was to produce your own product. And I think that that's what ended up happening with them. And the business was changing at that time. You're talking late 90s and early 2000s. It was all nu metal and shit. It was grunge and nu metal, and it's like anything that had, you know, just look them up. just look it up. I can't even.
You can't even attempt to describe it.
Right.
I mean,
You've already said it. Is the singer a man or a woman? Are they going to burn? Is that guy going to burn his hand off tonight? What is going on right now? I mean, they would come out and confuse the audience nightly. Yeah. And I think that that's what a lot of people liked about them. Like, what the fuck is this? This is the greatest show on earth. Or you just didn't get it at all. And if the singer said something offensive to you, they probably meant it, but it was all part of the show too. Yeah. So that can confuse you as well. If you want someone to come out and just say, oh, it's lovely to be here tonight, and we love you, and let's have a great time, and, you know, that's going to be offensive to someone who wants them to say something completely the other side of the stick, right? Yeah. Which is way more real and way more punk rock and way more freedom fighting than just petting the calf and, you know, playing nice guy. That's not very rock and roll to me. If you're not pissing anybody off at least half the time, you're not in a rock and roll band. Right.
Yeah, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the Toilet Boys personified that. And the legacy is living. Yeah. And Sean tells us he's going through some video footage. He's very into video. His day job is in the television graphics industry or something. Yeah, true crime documentaries. He's a graphics designer, basically,
so he's
editor.
Been archiving Toilet Boys footage since the beginning, and he's in the process of compiling that, and hopefully one day we'll get to see that, because it sounds like what he shared with us today just sounds amazing, and then the stories he shared that aren't captured on footage are amazing. So,
the footage that he has, I don't think is like by law, you wouldn't even be able to do the things that he has caught on film at a venue in public. You know, the things that they probably pulled off are like circus act shit, but it's not a circus, right?
Right. It's a rock and roll punk rock circus. Yeah, look them up. Do yourself a huge favor. Look up the Toilet Boys. Listen to the music. Get to know Sean today. If not, just watch this episode and learn about Sean Pierce and the Toilet Boys just firsthand. Just hang out with us with a cup of coffee or whatever, and listen to Sean tell the stories and what it stood for and what it stands for now, and you will be entertained whether you look up the Toilet Boys and buy a song, a record, or fall in love all over again, or learn to hate another band you don't like. Whatever it is, you're going to be entertained, and your jaw will drop at least a little bit. Absolutely. Pure entertainment today with Sean Pierce on the Talk Louder podcast. it's been a long time. I started looking back and I realized it's probably been more than 20 years since you and I had a conversation.
Yeah,
And,
time flies when you're having fun, man.
and raising kids and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, it's been a trip. It's been a trip. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
I know. I've been going through the same process of like going through old stuff, man. It's wild. What a ride.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, I was barely married, if I was even married, and I definitely didn't have a kid, and he's now 16. And I know you've got a teenager, right?
Yeah. So last night was like it was like big evolution in dad mode where it was first Halloween, where I gotta find a party and found myself like escorting her to an illegal rager in the park. You know what I mean? Like it totally like, what am I doing?
Wow.
And I was like, all right, you hang out, I'm gonna be around. And then like an hour later when she was done, I said, how was it? Like, oh, it was so fun. The cops chased us. I was just like, man, yeah,
It's like a flashback to your youth, right?
yeah. It was, but like it's so much more wholesome. I got like, I don't know. I was very happy to be part of it, thankful to be, up in the mix. Like I walked her up into the rager like this, and I got all excited, man. I felt like I was a teenager again. I was like, yeah. So,
Oh, wait, this
anyway,
isn't for me.
yeah, exactly. I was like, all right, I'm going to lay back in the cut. I'm going to walk down, it was
Yeah,
just fun.
I'm the old man here. I got to escape,
Well,
eject.
that's been a wild evolution in the past, like living in New York and, like there's generational scenes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like Toilet Boys, we were at like the late 90s, early 2000s. And then like 9/11 happened. And so then boom, enter the next generation and like trust fund kids, gentrification. And then there's just been this like really cool thing happening in Brooklyn in the past like decade, like the new gen. And so as an old guy, that it's like these kids don't know Toilet Boys, you know what I mean? But
No.
but I have such I always like the juice of like young punk rock. Like I'm like an old vampire. I'm like, oh, so I start seeing these underground Aska punk shows popping up around since the pandemic. And it's just a funny thing with me and my wife. Like she'll be laughing at me because I'm like, who? I don't know who to ask. You know what I mean? And she's like, oh man, so it's been wild, like kind of sniffing out what's going on with the kids in New York right now, and it's awesome,
I was
But
gonna,
do
I
hang
was
out
gonna,
at the-
I was gonna ask. And you just touched on it briefly. Do you think the pandemic and the lockdowns and shit had something to do with kids changing and those scenes that you're talking? I call
mean,
them. I work at a school, and
Yeah.
we call them COVID kids.
Yeah,
If
I mean,
you're
my
like,
kid calls herself a COVID kid. It's wild. Like
yeah,
even when like when I'm trying to be a dad and parent through just give advice about social interactions and stuff. And she'll let me know, like, dude, I'm a COVID kid, like there's other things that she's dealing with emotionally and stuff that like weren't part of my life growing
right.
up in terms of like, she had a year and a half where it was like her and some kid we potted with. It's a trip. So, and I also was involved with this project over the pandemic where I was really firsthand dealing with a lot of kids in DMs and on social media. And dude, it was like palpable. You could feel it. You could feel these kids like just want to fucking explode. And then I don't know if you guys are hip to what like Dead City Punks and like these shows that were happening in LA right when the pandemic. Oh,
No,
dude, you gotta check out video. It's like I don't even know how to look for it, but like Dead City Punk, like this band in LA, just some like, real deal crusty motherfuckers that threw like these illegal parties, man. And you're talking like helicopters, like explode, they had like fireworks going off. It got me so juiced up. And then there's a band in New York called like Warthog that kind of was, like that band right after the pandemic doing these outdoor shows. And there's like another big one that got a lot of heat was I think Madball in Tompkins Square Park. And so then it was like within the scene, you had people that were like, fuck the, like all of a sudden it became this anti-vax thing because there was, 5,000 people going apeshit for Madball in Tompkins Square Park. And then people were like, what are they doing? I don't know, man. It was wild. The pandemic really,
You mentioned your wife earlier. For people that don't know, you're married to Theo, the lead singer for the Lunatics.
The icon.
Yeah, yeah,
Sport icon, man. I feel so proud of my wife and just her. Yeah, if you don't know the Lunatics, go Google them. They're the fucking shit. They're the archetype for every, like they put out a book. So that was an interesting thing over the pandemic. Like they were working on their book like on Zoom, Yeah. So it's like everybody was like, we were all trying to stay creative and stuff. But the funny thing with the Lunatics and the pandemic, they had finally kind of been like, all right, we're going to play a reunion show, like first time playing in a decade or I don't even know how long. And it was literally booked for like 2 weeks, I think, after the shit hit the fan, and then they had to cancel it, booked it again, sold it out again. It got canceled again because there was another wave. And then so by the time the Lunatics played and the Toilet Boys got to open, it was like magic, it was wild. And their book came out and they have a movie that's out doing like festival circuits now. But
yeah.
What a wild story, man. The Lunatics, I don't know.
You said the kids today don't really know who the Toilet Boys are, but your daughter has got to be like, I mean, obviously she knows the Toilet Boys and the Lunatics. You guys have to be like the coolest punk rock parents on the planet. Does she?
Man, I mean, we're just trying, like, it's funny. I've seen over the years, I've seen punk parents, and it always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, like where the kid's getting in trouble with school because he wants to play the Misfits and stuff. Like I've seen some shit go down where I'm like, man, I can't push my kid to be the punk kid. So it's very funny. Her musical taste, like I'm here for it. I'm like, okay, let's listen to what Chaperone and that shit all has its own icy vibes to it too that I can get into. So being punk parents is interesting, and we have a thing in our house called like responsible punks. That's how we're like, yeah, we've been crazy as shit, but we work hard. You know what I mean? We work hard and we don't, I don't know.
Pay the bills.
There's ethic in even being punk. There's ethic.
Yeah. And we try to instill that in her. It's been cool. Like, it's been cool kind of contextualizing this wild life that we both have led in terms of, all right, we have a kid, and how does that come across to her? Like, so, I mean, she had this weird, funny little punk phase, but she definitely the last thing she wants to do is, but at the same time, she's got our DNA. Like I took her to some all ages show and she's in the pit mixing it up and having a great time. So anyway, it's just been being a dad. So,
well, I follow you on social media and you seem to be very involved. There's all kinds of photos of you, out with your kid and doing cool stuff. So hats off, man. Hats off to you and Theo.
It's been I don't know. I'll take it over like stadium tour shenanigans anytime. You know what I mean? Like,
there you go.
I will say in terms of like rock and roll and what we're talking about, one of the most surreal experiences was getting a phone call like, hey, do you want to open for Guns N' Roses? They're going to play Webster Hall. They're going to call it the Ritz, and they're going to relive whatever, right?
Wow.
We're like, fuck yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the weird thing about the Toilet Boys. Like, not many people know who the hell we are, but like, we've had the people that I care about. No,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like Guns N' Roses, like the Ramones, like people that my heroes, they check us, like Blondie, all these amazing people we've got to mix it up with over the years. So the Guns N' Roses gig, my kid's like, she's like 3, and I take her to her first like weird sing along thing, and I got to load in an hour, and I'm trying to get. And I was working at a freelance like production house doing animation is what I do. I told the people yo, I'm opening for Guns N' Roses. Oh, that's so cool, man. Like an hour later, lady comes up to me, hey, can you come in an hour early tomorrow? Because we're just, we wanted to, you know what I mean? So I'm there, open for Guns N' Roses. Our equipment stuck behind theirs. They proceed to play for 4 hours, dude.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there like falling asleep going like, how the fuck do they have 4 hours of music? Like, you know what I mean? They must have played their whole catalog and then cut to me at like 9 a.m. Like, you know, and at the end of the day, 2 weeks later, I got a check for $37 and just annoyed the shit out of like Guns N' Roses fans for a half hour. You know what I'm saying? Like that is the funniest fucking opening gig. Like these people were just like looking at me and this guy prance around stage like, what the fuck?
That's awesome, man.
And at this point in our career, we're not doing our fire. And that was the one thing, like looking back, because I've been going through our archives and kind of like back in the day, I was like obsessed. Like I was on fire, man. Like I'm shooting a movie about the Toilet Boys. And then the band before the Toilet Boys, I was going to shoot a movie about that. So in my archives that I pulled out like about a year ago, there's like 3 half completed movies about all the shenanigans we were up to.
You got to finish that shit, man.
Yeah. So I've been chopping it up because now I work on documentaries. I'm a motion graphics guy and I've worked on like high end shit. So I been nominated for an Emmy. So I'm sitting here looking at these tapes of like crazy shit. I'm like, okay, let's start. And just some of the stories, like our debut, so this whole saga builds up to our debut record, and here it comes, boom. What's the release date on that, Dave? Do you happen to know?
I think it was 2001.
Yeah, and the specific date being
9/11. Yeah. Bad
Slayer and Biohazard hold the like
Slayer too. Yeah, Slayer had an album come out.
God hates us all, dude. I was like,
it was perfect.
Yeah, talk about waking up, like what a fucking, So that's kind of like just that little tidbit alone. If you compound that times 1,000, that's like the Toilet Boys career. Like so many weird things, like on tour with the Red Hot Chili Peppers with zero money, and then White kills all those people. Like while we're there in Europe, playing stadiums, about to try to sign with Sony. And then we're like, we can't even do our show anymore. Like our show is off. We were using the exact same pyro that Great White was using. We had already set a club in London on fire, 4-alarm fire. And we're watching Great White just killed 90 people. And I have footage of our gig right afterwards in Portugal where people are booing us for not having fire. Like they're like, where's the fire? Like the house lights are on, they're booing us. It was, I mean, so it's been interesting kind of chopping all this stuff together. And it's almost like the Forrest Gump of dumb punk. Like, like we were just, Well,
you guys were one of those bands, and, I was thinking about this, and it's interesting that this happens in New York. You go all the way back to the New York Dolls, and then you kind of jump ahead to like D-Generation, and then you've got the Toilet Boys, and all of those bands, they had the glam punk image.
Oh, sorry, dude. We got to pause it. What's up, Lou? I'm on the interview.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, shit.
All good.
You got it. This is on the interview. Hold
all
on.
Good.
It's okay, baby. I'll fire it up. I got to go. Bye. So here we go. Here's some punk dad right now.
Yep.
In motion. Like, dude, you guys are going to edit this or whatever? I don't want to.
We'll just
you're fine. Yeah.
Okay, bro. Yeah. So my kid is getting her lunch and doesn't have enough money on Apple Pay to pay. That's my dad. And doing your heavy metal interview, just like opening for Guns N' Roses. You know what I mean? I'm like, I got shit going on.
But that's a real dad moment that you're having.
Yes, it is.
So rule.
Yeah. And then responding to a job that I can't fuck up. I've been talking in an hour. Boom.
So going back to the doll, going back to the Dolls and say D-Generation and the Toilet Boys, all 3 bands, shared sort of that glam punk aesthetic, but you also kind of had this social element. Like your gigs were events. Like,
well, our us in particular, and DJing, like DJing's the reason I moved to New York. Let's be honest, like Green Door, like what they had going on in the '90s. I was living in Delaware, and I was in this band Black Light Rainbow, and we were constantly playing New York, and I was so fired up by what Jesse and Howie Pyro had got going on. They were doing these Green Door parties that were wild, and yeah, the social aspect was huge. That was what it was, man. Like, honestly, I never felt like I was selling. The music was like the soundtrack to what we were bringing to your city,
right.
And as I'm watching back through the tapes, I mean, it was really, so our Toilet Boys came out of this party called Squeeze Box, which, I mean, it's legendary. This guy, Michael Schmidt, he designs clothes for Cher and Nicki Minaj. He's like just this prolific, like the gay mafia up here. You know what I mean? And he was throwing this party called Squeeze Box that would have drag queens singing with a rock band, which in the '90s was fucking, as a rocker, skinhead, hardcore kid from Delaware. And then I'm mixing it up with drag queens. And, it was such an interesting, unique thing at the time. It's very funny now that there's days and all this like gender fluidity now. And I'll catch shit, which is funny. Like I've had younger people, I'll drop the word tranny and like, it's like people freak out. And I'm like, dude, I'm in the Toilet Boys. I played the Tranny Shack. There's a club called that. Like we call each other like, so I feel like I get a ghetto pass for anything like that. I'm like, I was on the front lines punching people in the face for the right to be gender fluid on stage. And so as I'm looking back, and it was a time before cell phones and all that stuff. So the footage is really cool to see us fighting for like the safe space amongst 90s testosterone new metal. Because that was what was popping when we were going.
Yeah.
And we were directly out there like, no, fuck, like, okay, that, but no. Like, we're going to do our thing. And, but it all came out of that party. Like the Toilet Boys' first gig was opening for Debbie Harry, and Miss Guy was the DJ at the party. So he just threw this band together. So again, even the way we started was more like, oh, we just want to party. Like we're just, open for Debbie Harry. Fuck yeah, put a band together, And then I joined the band and brought all this pyro I was doing with my band Black Light Rainbow. And it's funny, as I'm looking back, I pinpointed how crazy we got to opening for Motorhead. Like I watched our
trajectory.
Yeah. And so I joined the band and we're kind of like misguided. We're punky, very, it was like sleazy punk glam stuff. We opened for Motorhead and Wasp, by the way, fucking twisted, right?
Yeah.
Like they were fighting the whole tour.
That's a good gig though.
Dude, it was like, so dig this gig. We load in, our equipment's in the middle of our Irving Plaza. Lemmy walks in. He's wearing white cowboy boots, right? Blackie Lawless walks in on the other end of the place. He's wearing white cowboy boots.
Uh-oh.
And I'm sitting in the middle going like this. And they're both fucking like pacing, looking at each other. And I was like, what is happening right now, right? Then the tour manager comes up to us. Sorry, dude, I got to do something. The tour manager comes up to us and he goes, yo, Motorhead's not going to play. They've been fighting the whole tour. You got to tell the crowd Motorhead's not playing.
Oh, shit.
Right? And I was like, what the fuck? We're not doing that, man. Fuck that. And so, we just were being funny and stuff. Got talking to Lemmy. He was funny as shit. He got a kick out of us because he was like, you remind me of the New York Dolls. And we were like, yeah. So we get on stage and this is the footage I have. My buddy Todd Phillips, who did the Gigi Allen movie and the Joker and all that stuff. I was buddies with him back then. And he filmed the show. Right next to him, there's a guy screaming the whole time we're playing, like, fuck you, die, you suck. like we got heckled so bad. And me and Miss Guy are on stage, like getting into our like, like loving on each other and we're doing our rock star, like we had this whole vibe going on that would just make straight rock dudes like lose their shit. Like, what, what's this gay bullshit? And then we get off stage. Lemmy plays a song for us. It was awesome. Like, we were like, fuck yeah. And this Hell's Angel prospect, I'm standing there watching Motor, it turns around, just boom, breaks my nose, man. Like, out of nowhere, just like fucking lights me up. Whoa. And then I had to go, Lemmy asked me to bass tech for the rest of the tour. And I was like, dude, I had to go dance that night. Like, I was go dancing to pay my bills. I couldn't go. Like, so that night was so filled with like all this energy and regret and getting my nose broken and being like having to say no to Lemmy to do this gig.
So you went go dancing with a broken nose?
Yes. Like, so I'm telling you, the Toilet Boys were no joke at that time.
Did you write a song about that shit? You should have wrote
all of our songs. If you listen to our lyrics, we write about, like, I was writing a lot. Like, we were like, there's a song called Party Starts Now, and we tell the story about setting the London on fire. We just allude to it, but it's all there. But yeah, so like, that's what, when I'm watching this stuff, I'm like, holy shit, dude. It's almost like a cartoon character. I'm just like a dad, I'm a working dad right now. Like, and I look at like this, I was insane. But at that moment, it's interesting because that show was like, fuck it. Like, from here on, fire, fuck you. And there's like at least 4 shows. We were playing the Roxy. We jumped in the crowd twice during the show and beat somebody up. Like, CC DeVille was kicking a dude with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm looking back and it's like, and not missing a note. Like, we went out there, boom, 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 still playing the song, all back on stage, like, fuck you, Miss Guy's screaming at the crowd. I mean, it's twisted, dude. Like, make the Sex Pistols look like pussies. It's fucking weird. And nobody know, you know what I mean? It was before the internet. Nobody's like, it's just interesting, So I'm trying to contextualize it in some way where,
you got to get that footage out. Today. You got to get that really footage out, man. You got to get that footage out. So
yeah.
Your shows obviously were super wild. I saw you a couple times in Texas. It was awesome. And, for people that don't know, you have a whole routine where you set your guitar on fire, you spit fire, you have sparks that fly out of your guitar.
We were really going for it, man. Like, and it was all illegal. It's a big joke with my mom and I. Like, my mom's awesome. Like, she was like the punk rock mom of Delaware, like my old hardcore, when I was in high school, we were putting out albums when I was like 15, like this band called Infection. And they're it's worth a Google. Like, people still are like, yo, like the 7-inch we put out, and like, I was a teenager. I was like, I made a 7-inch, and it's still floating around on Discogs and shit. It's great. And Delaware was this really interesting scene because we were right next to DC and New York and Philly. So like, I'd go to the beach in the summers and it'd be all these like emo kids from DC. And then up towards where I grew up, it was like Philly and New York. So it was like the punk rock scene was this weird mix of like a really special place. And my mom got, she'd be like the scene mom for the shows and driving us to shows and stuff. And then when I joined the Toilet Boys, she kept up being the rock mom and would send us gunpowder. Like, in the mail, my dad would be like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, he needs gunpowder in California. You know what I mean? It was like, I think about it now, I'm like, Mom, like, we were just, we'd laugh, like literally be buying gunpowder and we were doing it all. I mean, it's dangerous as shit. And we burned, like, set a club on the London Astoria. It's a big fucking club. Our first trip to London, it got written up as one of the top 10 disasters in rock, like, in all these magazines.
Wow.
Back in the day,
You were out with Nashville Pussy when that happened. Is that right?
Yup.
Yeah.
And then when we played with them in New York, the next time around, same thing happened. Like, we did some fire shit and they had to evacuate the place. So by the time Great White killed those people, dude, I can't tell you how weird it felt. And not to mention we were getting hit up a lot at that time from their fans. Like, we shared some fans and people were like, it was weird. And the feds came and were talking to a person at Don Hills about our show. I don't know if you remember, but at the time, like, George Bush even did a thing about it. You know what I mean? Like, it was big. They killed 90. It was like, I forget the count,
It's
96
like 100 people.
Yeah, it was
It was
about
the fourth biggest fire in our country. So it really just boom. It was like that for us. Boom.
Yeah.
So and it stopped us in our tracks. And by the time that shit happened, we were really on our last legs. And what's wild is seeing it on video. So we were kind of like, our album comes out on 9/11, right? And then it tanked us. Like our roadie, one of my best friends, was a firefighter, died. Like we were just like, got it. Then we go on tour with the Damned, kind of got a little bit of life left in us. We're running out of money, no money. I'm working at like a gay sex club, like it was just like, I have a video of me being like, I got $600 in the bank. I got a cavity. And it's the day we're leaving for the Chili Peppers tour. There was a terrorist. There was a guy from the IRA gave us money in Scotland. Like we play Scotland. Some dude rolls up to us. He's like, oh, I love this band, the Rock and Roll Revolution. He was nuts, right? Gives us $2,000, which we were like, oh, you're giving this to us? He's like, yes, for the cause, right? The 2 weeks before we leave for the Chili Peppers tour, this dude starts emailing us. He's like, I'm going to use all my resources to bomb, or if you don't send me my money back, you sell out cunts. And we were like, and we had no money, and we're like sending this dude money. I was in debt like 10 grand to go on the Chili Peppers tour, and with hopes that like we're playing stadiums.
Yeah.
Like we're playing stadiums. This is going to change our on that tour. The Chili Peppers were trying to get assigned to Sony. And it was during a weird time in the music industry when Napster was really popping off. And the guy from Sony was like, I love your bands, but my boss would kill me if I signed a band called the Toilet Boys right now. And I couldn't really argue with that. And we were so bad. We had this weird management at the time, and they had us working with the Berman brothers who let the dogs out to do some weird dance version of us. And I was like, it was twisted. And then the Great White Fire happened while we were on that tour playing stadiums. That was it.
How did that Chili Peppers tour even happen? Because it sounds like an odd mix. I remember
our whole career. So we opened for Blondie at Madison Square Garden. We didn't have a record out. We had no record. It was like, right? We get the call that week. No details. I just looked at this tape. They drop us off. Like we didn't know where to load in the Madison Square Garden Theater, right? The vans, like there's all this traffic. The guy drops all of our equipment on the corner, and we're like, where do we go? Like it was so Spinal Tap, bro. Like, so the stage door is like a half mile away. We're carrying our equipment through like city, foot traffic to play Madison Square Garden like idiots. And the same thing with our Chili Peppers tour. Like apparently each time we go to LA, we went to LA, that was our big scenes were like New York and LA. And like that was our bread and butter and like our, life. Like we loved that spirit of Hollywood and just how fucking sleazy and weird it would be. And honestly, from the day one of Toilet Boys going there was like fuck napalm. We just went spray painted the whole town. People were like, what the fuck is this? So we really loved Hollywood, and I forget what I was saying about the
No, I was asking how the Chili Peppers tour came about.
So each time we'd be in Hollywood raging, so I'm at Whole Foods or whatever, and I see John Frusciante, and I just roll up to him and be like, dude, what's up? I'm just that dude, like I'm a carny, you know what I'm saying? Like I got carny DNA. So I'm like hustling, we're trying to get over. And then Anthony Kiedis came and saw us open for the Donnas there. And then I saw Fleet and Brunch one day, and I was like, dude, what's up? You know what I mean? So apparently they had this meeting of who to take on tour for this tour. And each one of them somebody said, you ever hear the Toilet Boys? And somebody's like, yo, this guy came up to me at brunch, and then the other guy, and they were like, it became this funny thing. So they took us on tour, but literally we didn't have a label. We didn't have nothing, man. So
do you recall what the pay was going to be?
It was like, put it this way. I have footage of us. We smuggled all of our $10,000 worth of merch, stuck into every one of our things as if it was our clothes. I had one pair of jeans because Levi's was sponsoring us. And the jeans never came. So I like by the end of the tour, I'm literally sewing up my pants. And the money was like, it was nice. It was like $1,000 a gig, but
All right.
meaning
All
like
right.
like there's big bands that would have paid those tours.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
kind of tours, there's the buy-ins, So
Right.
we felt very lucky. But to make it the cherry on top, right? The last show of the tour. So each, we needed every bit of money because we were probably 20 grand in the hole to fly us over there, get our merch, try to get pyro over there, which by the way, they wouldn't even let us use.
So I'm sorry, this tour with the Peppers, was it US or Europe?
In Europe. So
okay.
it made it great because in the US, if we were opening for Chili Peppers, people would have just sat there and not cared. You know how that
Yeah.
goes.
Oh, yeah.
But we played all the dude. So it's amazing. Like we'd have whole stadiums, like fucking. It was wild, dude. So I'm so grateful that the end of our run is us in stadiums getting a whole stadium to clap. Like I started a wait. Like I went to the sound booth between bands one day, and I was just like tripping on it. I was like, holy shit, we were living the dream. The house lights are on and I started a wave in the stadium. Like I looked over here and everybody, I was like, yeah. And so to have that experience is just it's awesome. But the flip side of it was like, it was as down and dirty and fucked up. Like we had one little van and each Chili Pepper had a tour bus. So we'd pull up and it'd be like 5 tour buses. We all pile out of a van and just such a weird life of a toilet boy, man. It's been.
You mentioned going out to Hollywood. There's a song on your album called Hollywood, and there's a line in there about Kiss. I think the song was written about your first time seeing Kiss or something.
Yes.
Tell me about that song.
So that song, it's funny listening back, for decades, since our run, it's not like I've been immersed in Toilet Boy's shit, but in the past couple, especially the past month or two, I've been really chopping through this stuff and listening to Hollywood. Is the lyrics to it are exactly what we were about. I mean, we would roll in there, and when I was single, look out, I was tearing up that town, rock star style. And we were getting free clothes. Like we got sponsored by Lip Service and had our own brand of Toilet Boy. Dude, if I see somebody walking down the street with Toilet Boy jeans, I run the other way because it's always like the biggest, weirdest junkie, like somebody that, you know what I'm saying? Like there's this, they had jeans, Toilet Boy jeans with Miss Guy's face printed on it. Like it was such a weird thing. So when we go to Hollywood, it'd be like, all right, free clothes, like this party, whatever. We did really well there. And yeah, we were on tour with the Donnas and, got a little trippy, went to see Kiss. It was an amazing experience. The song, it was on Halloween. So it's all lyrics in the song, And then a couple months later, I ended up tour managing the Donnas, which was very funny. I have all that kind of footage, it was like me. They didn't have it. It was like me and the Donnas in a car, and they were sharing equipment with people. So I'm driving up and down the East Coast with the Donnas, and like at one of those gigs, Anthrax and Billy Milano from SOD wanted to meet the Donnas.
I saw Billy the other day. Billy lives here.
Billy lives here.
Yeah.
Does he?
Ran into him. Yeah, ran into him the other day.
Billy, like this was I'm a hardcore kid. I grew up like SOD, I'm immersed, right? Never met him. The Donnas would have, I was like, fucking, they had me, like, I was just like the crazy tour manager, right? Like, so I'm in like a leopard spotted suit and, like looking all crazy. The Donnas are downstairs at Maxwell's. I come upstairs. It was basically SOD. It was like Scotty and Billy Milano, and Billy's like, yo, man, we want to go down and meet the Donnas. And I was like, okay, let me ask, because the Donnas were like, we don't want anybody they had creeps, dude. Like my wife's band, any girl band they call them mom's basement fans that show up and they're just creepy and they have all the records and you're like, So anyway, it was my gig to kind of get the Donna's weed and keep the creeps away, So I go downstairs and I go, yo, the guys in Anthrax are here. They want to meet you. And they went, ew. They were like, ew, we don't want to meet them. And I was like, okay. So I go upstairs. Sorry, dudes. They're getting ready. You know, like Billy Milano goes, yo, Izzy Stradlin. He calls me Izzy Stradlin. And I was just like, and he's like, go tell the Donnas Anthrax wants to meet him. And I was like, they don't want, it was, dude. I did not know how to handle that situation. I'm looking at Charlie Benante or whatever and fuck Scotty and I was like, okay, like, you know, I'm like, this dude's the man, but he's like 4 foot tall. I'm 6'6". I'm like, what do I do here? Okay. They don't want to meet you, man. Oh.
You did.
And he's calling you Izzy Stradlin.
Yes, it was awesome. He punked me out. I love him for it.
Here's a split you did with the Donnas.
Yeah. So I wrote that song because Maya and they were all into hotboxing, and I never heard the term at the time. They were telling me about hotboxing. So the lyric in my song is about hotboxing the ride. And then Maya, the bass player, she kind of had like a teenage girl crush on me and wrote that song for me. And so it's special. I love it. I'm so, you know,
wow.
I'm proud to have been infused in some Donna's lyrics, you know, like they wrote a lyric about tour manage, and I guess I crashed the car and they wrote it in. So
what's the worst?
Wait, you guess you crashed the car? Yeah. Did you crash the car?
I don't remember crashing the car, but I watched the interview, and apparently I crashed the car that they're all laughing about. And I was like, did I?
Wow.
It's been wild watching these tapes because I'm like, oh, I guess I crashed the car, and they wrote a lyric about it, you know?
What's the worst you ever burned yourself on stage? Because when your guitar is on fire, it's not like a precise theatrical thing. This thing is a bonfire, dude.
It's on fire.
Just raging. It's on fire.
Raging. It was awesome, dude. It's hard to put into words, like to be on stage in front of like a couple thousand people with a flaming guitar that you're literally, you know what I mean? You're like, it's on, man. Like it's probably the most in the moment you can be. You know what I mean? It's like surfing a giant wave or something. Like you're right there. Like you're just going with it. And the fire, I loved. It was such I don't know, man. Like I've been a psychedelic warrior over the years, and there was something so magical and trippy about like the fire being the sonic thing that was just cooking through that. You know what I mean? So it's like the end of our show, and you have literal fire making the noise. You know what I mean? Like it is like, that's my guitar lead, fucking let it burn. And that guitar is hanging in the punk rock museum. And so
cool.
Like, that's definitely
is that in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
How many guitars did you destroy? Because that's
what's so wild about that guitar, bro. 50 times. Like the first time I like burn it thinking, all right, fuck this guitar. And then I plug it in afterwards and I'm like, oh shit, it still works. Each time I'm like, fuck, dude, that thing lasted. Like it got to a point where I'm like, I don't even need another guitar. Like this is the guitar I burn. And even towards the end where it was really like just a charred match and it was still playing.
Yeah.
And then I smashed it and it still, I like I did the bam and it didn't break. And I was like, fuck, I love this guitar, you know? So what's weird is like after we got done playing, I stuck it in my room. I hung it on a thing and it just sat there and I'm looking at it thinking like, this should be in a fucking museum. Like, look at this fucking guitar. Like, fuck me or the Toilet Boys. Like that guitar.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you just showed the footage and then that guitar, like that's as cool as anything I've seen in a museum. And then like, you know, a couple, you know, decades later or whatever, there's the punk rock museums like, hey, do you got anything? So I was so happy to be like, oh, put this in there, please. You know, like it's.
I have a few questions about that guitar. I mean, when you would set it on fire and you do this 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week, the strings, I mean, is it in tune? You have to change the string?
They go out of tune, but the string, dude, I am so like I am not a techie. I am not I'm the dude that's like, let's get 3 chords and make a band. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I'm like,
yeah. But Lemmy wasn't hiring you to be his bass tech because you could tune a bass.
Nah, he knew that I was like, I knew where to get the shit. And
you were a good hang and you had connections.
Can I tell you another Lemmy story? That was weird.
Of course. That's what this show's about.
a couple years later, I've had like 4 or 5 Lemmy interactions, and every one of them has been like, woo, ooh, like fucking twisted, like just my Lemmy interactions. First time I met him, he was playing pinball at Coney Island High. I was like, Lemmy, what's up, dude? I'm a fan. He goes, what was my last album? And this was during like the weird 1960s, like where I was like this. And he goes, right, you're some fan. And I walked away like, fuck, got it. Like, I was like, God damn, yeah, I don't know his last album. It fucked me up. I was like, you're right. And and then the next time we're playing with him, he's asking me to be his bass tech. The next time I'm in Terror Firmer, which is a trauma movie, right? Great trauma movie for any horror, weird B movie fans out there. It's like one of their best. Like it's got lunatics are in it. A lot of people from our scene were in it. Me and my wife fell in love on that movie set. So Lemmy is in the movie, right? And I was at my peak time of I was throwing 3 parties a week in New York. Toilet Boys were like raging, big reputation for being these party kings, right? And so the production calls me at 2 in the morning, like 1 in the morning, night before Lemmy gets there. They're like, Sean, we need you to get Coke and a chick to hang out with Lemmy tomorrow. Like, because that was part of his contract. Like you had to give him Coke and he had to have a girl that hung with him all day and night.
We're not talking Coca-Cola.
No, you say you need cocaine or like, you know, honestly, it was weird. Like, and it was like part of him being there. And at the time I knew every crazy chick in New York. So I start calling people. It's like 1 in the morning, like hang out with Lemmy. Nah, you know what I mean? It was weird. It was like people were like, oh, what do I got to do? Like they were like, they didn't know. And I was like, I don't know. You just got to hang out. So I couldn't get a chick and I couldn't get Coke. It was like, you know what I mean? I had to be at set at 6 in the morning. So I'm sitting there on set. I see Lemmy walk in at the other end of the room. I see a production guy point to me and I'm like, no, what? No, like, what are you doing? Like they put it all on me. And then Lemmy comes like barreling to me like a man on a mission. Yo, mate, I hear you got my works. And I was like, no, I was like, Lemmy, they called me. And he just fucking fuck. And he turns around and left, got on a plane and flew home and didn't do them. They had to shoot him in LA. I was like, God damn, dude. So, and you know what I mean? Like, I was
That's
like,
rough.
I love Lemmy. And now you're putting me in this position where he literally walked out because I couldn't get him Coke. It was so
Wow.
Yeah. So you never answered. What's the worst you burned yourself as far as your
the night before our first trip to LA, we were it was right. It was the first time I did fire with the Toilet Boys. And I hadn't figured out honestly. It was so lucky. My band before that, we were using grain alcohol. And so I don't know if you like, so when you're breathing fire, right? Like lamp oil is kind of like the shit you're supposed to use. We didn't know that. It was before the internet. You're just like, well, fuck it, you know? So if you use grain alcohol, I was using that, right? The shit just burns and it flies like napalm. It's fucked up. Like I actually burned like couple people pretty bad. And until I figured out, oh, you're supposed to use lamp oil like a dummy. You know what I mean? That's kind of like, it sums up my career in music, was just like out there fucking shit up, doing it all wrong, you know, and then figuring it out. So was still using grain alcohol and I didn't have a torch on my guitar. I was holding a torch, you know, and I watched the video. I have it on video. I must have been using a set list like a dummy. Like I took this piece of paper and set it on fire, drink the grain, and then my whole hand catches on fire. And again, I'm caught in the moment being like, you know, Mr. Rock Guy. I throw my hand up in the air, burning, you know, and I'm just like, yeah. And then quickly realize like fuck, and I can't get it out. And so that like my hand was like size, it was blistered up like the Elephant Man for the whole tour. So I have all this footage of us playing LA with this giant bandage on my hands, just like raging in LA. And because I didn't have time to go to the doctor, I would take the bandage off and it was like dirty from LA. Dude, I thought my hand was gonna fall off. It was horrifying. Wow. And after that, I got really kind of extra careful with shit. Like they kind of leveled up the game for pyro.
Yeah.
But we certainly were. It was wild, man, because one of our pyro, you might know him. His name's Omid Yamini. He's like Sleazy O. He goes by. He's like a metal legend, and he was our pyro guy for a while. He does a lot of like pirate vinyl releases now, stuff like that. And but so we'd have like a pyro guy for a while. Like Omid was our dude, and like we trusted him with our life because he's blowing us up. Like if you get the cue wrong, you could kill one of us. Honestly, we had like flash pods that were at super small stages. And then when Omid kind of quit, like there was this kind of like, when things got dark and so like our bass player, Adam, and Omid quit. And then we were just like, oh, you can go on tour? Like, oh, you're my pot dealer? Hey, come on tour with us and do the pyro, and then next thing you know, we got like some crazy dude throwing like or we'd be at a show and not have a pyro guy and then just ask like kind of our buddy. So honestly, looking back, is very lucky we didn't kill somebody or cause like a major incident, even though we did cause a couple major incidents, so I feel so lucky about that.
When I
I'm
interviewed,
glad your hand didn't burn off.
yeah,
I mean, dude, it really, again, looking back, I'm like, we were very lucky because we were just being honestly stupid. And the Great White thing really put that in perspective. I remember Dave Grohl made a comment and something that was kind of pointed towards us at the time because we were on everybody's radar. Like people now probably don't know, nobody knows who the fuck we are. And I'm totally cool with that. But our story is epic. Like the story, I do want to, contextualize it and put it into something because I think it speaks a lot to what is going on right now, politics and the world and shit. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, a lot of people feel emboldened to kind of tell, like, I don't know, man, there's something about the religious right now that I think the Toilet Boys story really shows you something. Like we were out there, people they couldn't get it and they would fuck with us. You know what I mean? And it was like, just let us do our thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. When I look back on it, I'm like, wow, like the fact that we're up there just putting it out there and just, bringing a party and then somebody wants to kind of like stop that,
Yeah, you guys were like freedom fighters for causes that are very prominent today.
I was thinking the same thing. I almost said it. Yeah, I almost said it earlier.
You guys were kind of standing up and without even trying. You were just doing the thing, but it happened to be this thing that today would resonate with a lot of people. Back then, it was sort of this underground cult thing, and it was kind of on the fringe or whatever. But today, I mean, you look at somebody like Miss Guy. Today, I remember when the Toilet Boys came out, I couldn't tell if your singer was a guy or a girl.
Yeah.
And today,
honestly, that would be a funny thing on tour. I mean, because Guy was like, he's wild, like, and like had his moments of being like, we all had our moments of being wild out there on the road. And, but there'd be a couple times where people would not, like, I had dudes like, do you mind if I have a go at your bird, in England? And I'm like, like, and then afterwards being like, Guy, did that dude know you were a guy? He's like, you know what I mean? Like there'd be time, like it was just wild. Like, so I get how we would really push buttons, dude. And we were just punk as fuck. And it's funny, recently somebody was making a documentary about punk rock and talking to my wife about it. And the topic of the Toilet Boys came up and the person was like, oh, I didn't consider them because I don't consider them punk, which just made me laugh so hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I have to ask, was it the music is why he separated you guys?
Well, that's what's interesting because even the musically, we had an evolution going from like where it's like the early years was very punk rock and trashy and just, and then we tried to, by the end, I was really trying to do this kind of like metal, like just sex metal, you know what I mean? Like just really, I was really trying to go as hard as like to really push all the buttons for like dudes that like hard music, but make them deal with us. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that That was where
but
my North Star was, where I grew up in heavy music, you know, but like something cracked in me when I came to New York and saw, you know, these like unicorns, these queens that really liked hard music, but couldn't have their place in it. It's
yeah,
weird to think about, you know, because it was
Right.
at a time where, like, even when I first met Miss Guy, I remember having these long phone conversations with him, like, what was it like? Like, what's it like? You know, like, what's it like to be gay? You know what I mean?
yeah.
I had no
Yeah.
clue. You know, I was
Yeah.
like great skinhead kid,
Well,
you know?
I think that where Ms. Guy is coming from, and a lot of constituents. I mean, it's very punk because
Yeah.
you're a freedom fighter yourself when you're
Just existing,
it's a
man.
team, right? You're coexisting in a place where you may not be welcome all the time. So
Yes.
you're a freedom fighter. You're what I'm getting at is punk is an attitude. It's not really a sound of
Yeah.
something. It's
Well,
an attitude.
I
Like
mean,
Lemmy is punk, but that's not punk rock music. Motorhead
yeah.
is not punk rock music. I mean,
Right.
Well, I
it
think
is. It is because of what I'm talking about, but
yeah.
it's not a sound. It's an attitude. I mean, Dee Snider from Twisted Sister is punk rock. It's an
But
attitude.
good Dee Snider story.
Give me one.
Toilet Boys first. So we get signed to Roadrunner finally, right? Fucking like dream come true. And this our first thing that Roadrunner did for us establishes the whole experience of being signed to Roadrunner. They're like, oh, we're gonna get you a limo. We're opening for Dee Snider at this party that I used to throw called Lust for Life. Had great like we had like Hate Breed one week, like Iron Butterfly the next week. Weird fucking party.
Cool.
So it's Toilet Boys and Dee Snider. Roadrunner sending us first limo. Like we're like, holy shit, you know, like we're finally there. We're all like sitting at my apartment waiting for the limo. We're like, dude, we're supposed to be on stage in like a half hour. Where's this limo? No limo, no limo. The limo shows up like right at the time we're supposed to be on stage. We're still like, yeah, woo, we're still hopeful. There's no cell phones. We don't know what's going on at the club. We fucking pull up, walk in, like people are all fired up, you know, because we're late. The show's running late. To walk in to find out that Dee Snider is like super pissed and walked out of his own gig. Again, another like, so we're left to play for Dee Snider's crowd with no, like he walked out. He's not playing the show. And to which Miss Guy gets on stage and gets the whole crowd chanting, fuck Dee Snider,
Oh shit.
which was epic, right? And we killed it that night. Like we were at the height of our powers. We crushed it. Nobody cared that Dee Snider wasn't at his own show. Cut to like 10 years later, me and my wife are playing in a band together called Theo and the Skyscrapers. And Dee Snider has a show on Sirius XM
Mhm.
and he has us on. And the first thing, like before we even come on the interview, he barrels into the room and he's like, "What are you guys in the Toilet Boys? What the fuck?" And I was like, "Yo!" And he gets right up in my face. He's not that tall, man. Like I was ready. I was like, you know, but it was very funny. And we had this whole thing where I was like, "D, you don't understand." And like, you know, it was just a really special way to wrap up that story because I was always like, "Oh my God," you know, like we caused Dee Snider to leave his own show. It was really like Roadrunner's fault. And then Roadrunner proceeded to be like the worst experience ever. We never even recorded our album.
Yeah, I mean, I was
Damn.
going to ask at the top of this segment, you know, what was the reason the Toilet Boys disbanded? Because we're all familiar with the music industry. It's kind of there's so much luck of the draw involved. But
Well, I kind of already told you the
yeah, exactly. I'm hearing all these like shoot yourself in the foot kind of moments, but
Yeah.
you know that's not the whole story.
Well, with Roadrunner, right? So like it was like Roadrunner was like we thought we were there, and then we had our A&R guy was named Derek Oliver. The owner or the president was named Derek Schulman. They're both English. Derek Schulman was in Gentle Giant, right? And we'd have meetings with these dudes, and they would sit there, put on our song, and they're both English named Derek, and they go, "Derek, I love it, but I hate it." And then Derek would be like, I know. What do you think, Derek? And they'd keep calling each other Derek. They were weird as shit. And then they're like, we want to. So we ended up working with Joe Barisi, who's a great producer, Steve Jones. They're like, let's get Steve Jones on the phone. They couldn't get this dude on the phone. I had to call Steve Jones. Like a month goes by. I'm like, what's up with Steve Jones? They're like, wow, we're going to get to. I call Steve Jones. I'm like, Steve, do you want to? He's like, I'd love to, mate. Listen, it's going to be $150,000 and you got to supply the birds. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm constantly having to supply birds to old fucking
old English dudes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And then, they have us work with the keyboard player for Bon Jovi. He helped write Hollywood. Like, so he wrote a bridge in Hollywood.
Really?
So me and the guitar player, Rick, lived in this shitty little East Village apartment. Knock, knock, knock on our door. There's Dave Bryant from Bon Jovi with a joint in his ear and a Casio keyboard. Walks in on our kitchen, lights the joint, and proceeds to belt out in the biggest Bon Jovi. Like, I mean, his voice sounds just like Bon Jovi's. He's like a really good backup guy, I guess. Fucking, and starts fucking playing it on a piano. And then these guys get fired, right? The two Dereks get fired. The new president of the label is Theo's cousin. His name's Jonas. Jonas and the owner come and see Toilet Boys open for Orgy at Hammerstein Ballroom. At that show, a couple kids were giving us the finger, and this guy, we're, again, as I've said, man, we would just, like, you fuck with us and he'll go, like, and he just was like, fuck you. You'll all be buying our albums in a year. Go back to Long Island. And as soon as he said Long Island, the whole crowd because they're all Long Island kids going to see Orgy. They all put their middle fingers up and started booing us. And then the president and the owner come backstage and they're like, eh. So, and then cut to the president's Theo's cousin. So I'm like, he's family. I call the dude myself personally, like, what's up with the toilet boy? Like, never calls me back, dude. And then boom, we're dropped. We got like a settlement, like we got a chunk of the record deal and started our own label. But I still got to see this fucking guy at like, a funeral or something. The darkness of that moment being like, and what's fucked up is I heard through the grapevine that it was really because this guy wouldn't wear pants. Like they asked him to start wearing pants. So it's the homophobia and the bullshit is palpable, and it's like everything that was great about the Toilet Boys, they were like, oh, we love it, but let's change that, Let's rewrite another day. They had us rewrite Another Day in the Life, our biggest song or whatever. It's one riff. It's the simple hand claps and a riff. They had us rewrite that 8 times. I have 8 different versions of it.
Did I see Madonna as an extra in the video for that song, or was she just listed as an inspiration? Is there a Madonna connection anywhere?
Nah, no Madonna. There's a lot of like Theo's in it. Like that's just all the people that were swarming around at the time for us are in that video.
It sounds like,
but that's interesting. That video we shot 2 videos in one day for like 500 hours total. That shit got on MTV. Like once we put out our own, it was like we tried to start a label and that video was beating the White Stripes and some like rock countdown bullshit, Wow. And that was literally right before 9/11. So, the video was doing so well that other labels were like, yo, whoa, like it was like, oh shit, these guys started their own shit. And so, I mean, fate just fucking boom was like, oh, you guys are doing good. Cool.
I was going to say, it sounds to me like all of the things that made the Toilet Boys cool, your definition of cool, whatever that may be, is all these levels. It's a fucking onion anyway.
It's an onion.
It sounded like it was keeping the next step at bay. Like there was two more steps you had to go every time. Every time somebody had you and said all the right things, they either wanted to change it or they finally okay, you guys want to work with the Toilet Boys? Okay, come see us play. And they come see, hey, we want to work, we want to sign you. They come see you play. And then they walk away all scared and shit.
We're a lot. We're
Yeah.
we were flat. That's all, like, I mean, so much going on. So in this band, you got Miss Guy, which is he's mental fuckery just from the jump. Just
Well, that's what I'm saying. You got Miss Guy, you have your
so
antics.
you got Miss Guy. Our drummer went on to be in Psychic TV, so you can imagine where his mind's at. Like he ended up kind of championing Psychic TV. Our bass player is he's a reverend in the Church of Satan with speaking rights. You know what I mean? So you can imagine what trip he's on. Like that's how his evolution has gone by.
Wow.
And then like Rick, our guitar player, he was living it. We were living it right along with it. And then since he's had some issues with like his parents and like a lot of stuff personally, so he wasn't able to kind of continue on once we were doing these reunion shows. And then we ended up with Paris from the Cro-Mags has been playing with us. So
cool.
What a weird crew of people, like even Paris coming in at the end is like, oh, let's sprinkle a little more legend dust on this. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like when he came in, I was just like, dude, I don't care what you play. Just keep telling me Cro-Max stories or you know what I mean? It's amazing.
No shit.
The legend. I mean, I grew up, the fact he played the Lunatics reunion show with us and a couple other gigs. And I still trip out like being on stage with this dude that like literally got me going, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Jason can relate to that. I don't know if you're aware, but Jason about 2 years ago was called in to do some gigs fronting Accept and Armored Saint as well.
I did a week with Accept.
Yeah.
Two years ago.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, dude. I was hired to sing Fast as a Shark, Restless and Wild, Balls to the Wall.
That's amazing, man.
And then a month later, I did it with Armored Saint. And Mark from Accept and John from the Saint, they caught RSV, that upper respiratory, some sort of version of that, and their voice was shut
around with a little thing dosing people with RSV.
No, good idea. No,
Pay that well.
No,
I had an Armored Saint moment when I was like a kid. What was that? What was their big?
Can you deliver?
Yes. Yeah. I was like, man, I remember having like a month where I was like, oh, it's Saint, just like love them, man.
They're fucking great. And that was an experience being a fill-in guy for basically two bands that I worshipped in high school.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, it was a good time.
So it's interesting doing like I've only once in my career been a true like guitar whore. And that was doing the Carson Daly house band, meaning like it's a weird experience filling in.
Weird.
Like I've never had to do it. And then once I was playing other people's songs, I was like, whoa, it was like just the weirdest thing for me. I mean, like it was interesting. Like, I guess like if you're a fan of the band, it's
there's like a, X amount of material you're familiar with. And then there's an X amount of material you have no idea, and can you be in Atlanta tomorrow?
Right.
No rehearsal from the airport to sound check if you're lucky.
Oof.
Then you're just gigging. No rehearsal, nothing. Just get up and go. Yeah.
I love it. That's cool.
And imagine you're a hardcore fan, and you're seeing where the fuck what? This isn't what? Who the fuck is this redheaded fuckhead?
Yeah, dude. It's so okay. When the Misfits were doing American Psycho era Misfits.
Yeah.
So right when that was all, I guess, blowing up, I kind of was like friendly with Chud, the drummer, Dr. Chud.
Yeah.
And he calls me up one day and he's like, yo, what are you up to, man? Like, what's going on with the Toilet Boys these days? And I'm like, whatever, why? And he goes, would you want to come down and audition to sing? And I'm like, wow. Dude, I was the Misfits kid. Wow. Like that was my shit. And I was like stuttering and and thank God I said no. I mean, like, although it's like that thing with Lemmy asking me to bass stack, like I regret, like I'm like I should have just went for the experience, but like there was I'm not really a singer, and just trying to imagine the heat that would come with like anybody that gets that spot. So I can like the fact that you actually did it is interesting to me. Like,
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people like other like hard rock and metal singers that I only know their name and I have mad respect for them, but I've never met them. They were going online going, Jason has the biggest balls of all because because I fucking did it.
totally.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, for real. I mean, especially that song too. That's great. What a cool experience.
It was a good. It was a good time.
Did you catch people fuck with you?
There were a couple of haters, but you know what? For
Like,
the most part, they understood that I was saving their ass.
Yeah,
They understood. The fans understood that I was saving their. It was weird doing the meet and greets. Because the fucking singer is not there, and I'm in the corner in the dressing room going,
for Accept, because he's pretty much the band, like, I mean, that's who I associate with that band.
Well, and Mark, do you know Mark Tornillo from no? He's been the singer for Accept for like 15 years.
He's not. Oh, dude,
he's from Jersey. You're thinking Udo Dirk Snider. He hadn't been in the band.
Okay, so he busted out Udo's. I'm not steeped in like.
No, that's
era.
all right. That's all right. But yeah, it was still just being weird. It was weird doing meet and greets with a band that you're not really in, and everybody's going, and it's day one, and they're going, where's the singer? Where's Mark? Where's John? Where whatever? And I'm like, oh, our good friend Jason, and they're going, where is he? It's this fucking redhead guy standing right in front of you. The thing is a lot of people, I have my own peeps, they know. So a lot of my people were stoked that I was.
Oh, of course. I'm sure
stepping in to hang.
But it's that Accept fan. It's like, who the fuck is this?
Yeah. Oh, see, I'm that Accept fan. I'm that Armored Saint fan. I don't want to see that shit. I want to see their shit,
So the New York Dolls, I'll say, I had this moment with them. I'm trying to think of bands that I haven't really experienced that, except the New York Dolls had Steve Conte playing guitar.
Oh,
and I saw them right when they did that new, like they came out with a record.
Yeah.
And it was funny because, like, all of me knew, I'm like, all right, this is I'm seeing the bullshit version of the Dolls, whatever, or however you want to call it. Like, I don't want to say bullshit, but the not the Dolls in their prime.
2.0, whatever.
Yeah. But I was able to get lost in it. Like, it was funny. You have to kind of flip a switch where you're like, I'm going to blur my eyes and pretend that's Johnny Thunders. Right. And then, so it's an interesting experience witnessing that for sure.
Yeah. You kind of have to, especially if the band is kind of like iconic and legendary, or like I always say, man, if I had all of your records in high school, the chances of me listening to you 20, 30 years later are high. And you know what I mean? It's
that's what gets you.
You remember what you fell in love with. You can't get mad at because it's not the same old crusty dudes from 40 years ago,
Yeah. But it's been interesting watching like Exciter and different bands of that era kind of making, it's cool. It's inspiring seeing like the dudes that were older than me out, like Agnostic Front, all these dudes out there doing it. But I will say, as a guy that's had my foot in that world my whole life, that I can't imagine trying to make a living being a road dog and have a family and shit. Like, it's hats off to them for making it work. Anybody that does, but I certainly don't regret not trying to stay on the road, being
It sounds to me like you've had 9 lives on the road and you've been coast to coast and global and had a great fucking time doing it.
Had such a great time.
Yeah.
But, like, I wouldn't, I was also in the Toilet Boys, like the only dude that drove. So all my association, like I got the nickname Dark Daddy because it was just like trucker speed, 12-hour drive, do the crazy show with the fire, get in the car, drive the next 4 hours with no GPS. So you can just imagine how twisted I'd end up by 3 weeks of that or 4 weeks,
Yeah.
But I can't even wrap my head around what normal tour life is for other people. Like
Yeah.
it
Man,
was
you
all
worked
so extreme for us.
hard, dude. You worked fucking
Worked really
hard
hard.
as
Yeah, it was
fuck.
hard and just kind of almost psychotic in a way. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing, man? Like, I
Yeah.
look back, like you put in a lot of no shit.
Honestly can't believe that you survived it.
Me
I mean, with the shit that I learned, I told Dave today because you're not steeped in accept. I'm not steeped in toilet boy.
Yeah,
So,
I get nobody is. That's like,
well, I told Dave, I said,
we
I'm
have-
going to learn a lot today, man. I'm going to learn a lot.
Everyone's going to learn a lot today.
Yeah.
This has been amazing.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. I'm glad it's enjoyable. I will say, as like trying to look at it from like removing myself from it, like with taking my ego out of it. Like when I look at the story and what we did, it is pretty, in terms of just good rock and roll lore and stories, it's pretty wild, because
Great
we
music
like,
too.
well, that's at the end of the day, man, like the one thing I look back on is like that I'm so proud of is I had this internet show before there was Google, like, and I was getting paid to do this internet show interviewing like I said, Richie Stotts and all these different people.
Yeah.
We had Dee Dee Ramone on all the time, and I have footage of him talking about how much he loved the Toilet Boys. And I remember it was kind of like when we were done playing and I was in the car with my parents driving to a bus station and I'm reading his book, Dee Dee's book. And all of a sudden he's like, I saw this band, the Toilet Boys. And he was like basically saying that we inspired him to start playing music again because it was so, and I just like kind of started crying. You know what I mean? It was so emotional for me. Like that he's literally the dude that got me started playing music. Like the Ramones were my gateway. So, at the end of the day, you might not have $1 million, but
you've got a great legacy and a great story. And I really hope that all that the video footage that you have gets compiled and released to the world at some point, because just what you shared with us today sounds fantastic.
And so just real quick before we wrap, your day gig, you mentioned you're like you work for are you an editor for a film company, or what do you got?
Motion animation, motion graphics. So you can see my stuff. Like I got tied in with it's kind of a funny Told Boys link up. Like this guy Joe Berlinger, he did.
I know who that is. Yeah.
Fucking awesome.
That
like he's the top of the food chain.
Yeah,
for
that's
docs.
right. And he has a partner too, Berlinger, and there's another guy.
That guy died. But
shit. Shit.
So they did some kind of monster, which obviously is our culture's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he's done, amazing stuff. So he was doing a movie called about Whitey Berlinger, that Boston mobster.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was kind of doing motion graphics. That's my thing. But I kind of got in, I got a meeting with him and I was like, dude, I really want to, I was so fired up to work on this movie. And it turned out he directed Blair Witch 2, right?
Okay.
Which was bad, the weird Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Cut to
I actually liked that movie.
I'd never seen it, but
I kind of liked it.
When it came out, one of like the goofy opportunities presented to us was to go to Maryland and play in the forest to some weird Blair Witch sleepover event. So I have this footage of us, like, it's like in the forest, like they handed out they made tents for everyone and they handed out pumpkins and knives to everyone in the crowd that was all wasted, sleeping in these tents. And the Toilet Boys it was like, again, just like one of those goofy, like, what are we doing? Like, nobody knew who the fuck we were, but we were the entertainment at this. So because of that, he got a kick out of that. And next, I ended up doing Ted Bundy tapes. He did the crime scene, like all these great docs that have been on Netflix. Like a lot of the
I've seen that. I'm a big true crime freak, so I see that. I watch that shit.
I became kind of like that's like my wheelhouse for my day gig is a lot of true crime, like So if you see true crime stuff, I might have done, there's a lot out there. Like that's my hustle.
Yeah, usually. I bet I've seen some of your shit.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting having that kind of skill set now. When I started to digitize my tapes, I'm like, oh, You know, I can animate like a Sean running through and telling the story, and like, you know, like the Toilet Boys always were like a cartoon, and this great artist had drawn us as a cartoon. So,
I've
you
seen
know,
that.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of interesting ways to kind of like tell the story. So I'm really hoping, you know, it's going to take a lot of work, but whatever. Maybe it'll happen and get the story out there and let everybody be like, holy shit, this guy's
Yeah.
nuts.
Well, I'm glad I got to see it and be a part of it, even briefly, back in the early 2000s.
Just finding that article made me so happy, dude. Like, you nailed it, you know? Like, I actually got to dig in I'm always looking for little quotes that we can put across the screen, but like just the headline, you know, like, you know, you really captured it. And I'm so thankful for people like you know, you and other people that got us and put us out there, man. It was everything at the time.
You guys were great, man. You were, when I first was exposed to the Toilet Boys, I was like, oh my God, this is great. Cause it's trashy, it's glam, it's punk, it's everything. And then I met you guys and you were super cool. And then I followed you to Houston and we did it all over again.
Yeah.
And it was a great couple of days running around with the Toilet Boys. And yeah, I was happy to have that connection too.
Man.
Yeah. Well, I hope your footage sees the light of day, man. I thank you for all the music you've given us in the past and the stories you shared with us today. My God, I've got a list of questions here. I didn't even forget that, dude. You were just pure gold.
See, we've been lucky like that, though, Dave. Dave's the real journalist here, as you can tell. He'll have all this killer shit, and he won't even. With the guests are so badass, he won't even get into his fucking list.
There's no reason to interrupt Sean today, man. I mean, it was story after story after story. It was pure gold, man. So,
well, I might have a lot, but I got stories, you know. It's funny to look back and go have a album called "Living Like a Millionaire" because we certainly personified that. You know what I mean? That really, you know, limousines and all the shit, but like duct tape, broke ass. Anyway.
Well, thanks for spending so much time with us today, man. It was great reconnecting with you. We appreciate all the great stories. This was amazing.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Had a total fun.
The app about the accept gig that's really interesting to hear, man. Thank you.
Weird stuff.
Yeah. Give our best to your family. Stay in touch, man. And I'll send you this link when the show is available. We appreciate you so much, man. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave, along with our special guest today, Sean Pierce from the Toilet Boys on the Talk Louder podcast.